Josh began to cry as well and asked, "Why didn't you guys tell me sooner?" Unfortunately, and understandably, he left the room. Would I be the a-hole if I told him the truth? Honestly, you could argue either way. You could argue you would not be an a-hole if you didn't tell him, and you would not be an a-hole if you did tell him. Welcome back to Based on a True Story. My name is Rafael Omar, and today I've got a story for you about family. Oh, those stories about family. We already know. When it comes to family, family can be some of the best people you spend your time around, or they can be some of the worst. And in this story, we've got a young man who his parents made a decision at a young age, which put him in a very unique situation. And so he's needing help trying to determine whether or not a decision he made was the right decision. I want to know in the comment section, do you believe, after you hear this story, whether or not the decision made by the young man is the right decision or not? Oh, I know I got my opinions. Oh, I got my thoughts. I got my opinions. Can't wait to share them with you. Let's get into the story. I'm well aware that this story might sound extremely hard to believe or fake, and I know there will be plenty of comments about it below, but this story is 100% true, and it's currently a hot topic of discussion in my family. I was born when my parents were 19, and my only other sibling, my brother, let's call him Josh, was born when they were 42. They divorced shortly after Josh came into the world. He was only 4 months old at the time, and both of them wanted nothing to do with him. At the time, I was 23 and living with my then girlfriend, now my wife, who was 21. I did my best to convince at least one of my parents to care for Josh, for his sake and the family's, but they refused adamantly. Instead, they said I should be the one to take custody of him. So, I became Josh's legal guardian, and he's been living with us for the past 12 years. Things have been going really smoothly. Josh, now almost 13, has been calling me dad and my wife mom, and he sees our two children, a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old, as his siblings. He has absolutely no idea who his biological parents are, and to be honest, I've let that slide. He has no idea that I'm really his biological brother and not his father, and lately, I've been feeling really guilty and honestly a little weird about it. Some of my aunts and uncles visit occasionally, and they're really uncomfortable with the fact that he calls me dad. They're shocked I haven't told him the truth yet. I can't have a conversation with them without this topic coming up. They constantly message me and pull me aside to push me to tell him already, but I've refused. I've talked about it with my wife, and she thinks it would be wrong to tell him the truth, especially since neither of our parents wanted anything to do with him. She says I'm the only person who ever gave him the father figure every child deserves. I do feel he has the right to know the truth about who he is and what I truly am to him. But at the same time, he's already been through enough, and I just want him to have a happy, stable life. I want things to stay as they are. Would I be an a-hole if I told him the truth? And let me pause right here because he left a question right here. First off, congratulations to you. You are the only adult here in the situation stepping up to him. It's interesting how your family is telling you that you need to step up and do this and you need to do that. But at least in the story, you haven't mentioned them helping out in any way. They know that he's not your son. They know that you've been taking care of him since you were 23. And who's to say you were even in a place to be able to take care of this kid at 23 years old? So first off, bravo to you. But let me just give you an applause here. Bravo. Bravo to you. Would you be an a-hole? Let me look at this question again. Would I be the a-hole if I told him the truth? Honestly, you could argue either way. You could argue you would not be an a-hole if you didn't tell him, and you would not be an a-hole if you did tell him. You know, one thought could be, you know what transpired to cause him to be in your custody. You've already hit the nail on the head. They didn't want him. His own parents, your parents, didn't want anything to do with him. And apparently, neither of you guys' aunts, uncles, grandparents wanted anything to do with him either. So he ended up with you. And that can be a devastating blow. That's one point for not telling him. Another thought could be, well, telling him gives him the opportunity to face and deal with the reality of the situation. So that's a point to telling him. I don't think you can mess up either way, but that was only halfway through the story. Let's get back to the story. I went to my local therapist and told him about my situation, asking what I should do. To keep it short, he said he'd heard similar stories before and strongly advised that I tell Josh as soon as possible for multiple reasons, and that my biological children should be present during the conversation, also for several reasons. I asked a few of our closest friends, and the majority more or less said the same thing. My wife and I decided to sit the kids down and burst the big bubble. My wife and I were already in the living room when the kids entered. I asked my brother Josh to come closer, making sure I held him tight to help him feel safe and comfortable. He asked, "What's going on?" I took a nervous breath and looked at my wife, then back at Josh. There's something we've been needing to talk to you about, Josh. You're not in trouble, and I want you to know that you are loved more than you can imagine. My hand was still resting against his shoulder, and I could physically feel him tensing up. So, as gently as possible, I told him the truth. When you were born, your parents were going through a very difficult time, so you were given to us to raise you, to love you, and to care for you. We are not your biological parents, Josh. Your biological parents are the same as my biological parents. I'm not your father, Josh. I'm your older brother, and we've been happily raising you since you were a baby. I quickly hugged him and my other two kids and told him, I love all of my children the same, and nothing is ever going to change that. He stood there, stunned. Is this a joke? He asked. But I had already started crying at that point, so he knew I was serious. My biological children were very surprised too. Josh began to cry as well and asked, "Why didn't you guys tell me sooner?" I was just trying to protect you. I'm sorry, and I hope you can forgive me. Unfortunately, and understandably, he left the room. He didn't talk to me too much after that. Again, understandably so. I kept trying though. I invited him out to the park to play football, his favorite, or to do other things he loves, but he declined each time and sometimes even got upset that I was trying. I thought I had messed up big time. Then one day, my wife and the kids were out shopping, leaving just the two of us at home. Josh came up to me and said, "I know you're not my real father, but I want you to know you're the best dad in the whole world, and I'm sorry for before." To say I was surprised was an understatement. I hugged him, and things got very emotional. It would be a lie to say our home is normal now. Far from it. But things are slowly, ever so slowly, starting to brighten up. There's nothing left to hide, and it feels like our relationship has been born again. Josh is a tough kid, and he handled this far better than I ever believed he would. I'll be looking into therapy for him, just in case things don't go as smoothly in the long run. I'll keep striving to be a great dad to my kids, and a great dad to my brother and son. I'm sorry. I just need a moment. That was powerful. You know, this is just one of those situations where you were put in a situation where I don't think most people would have been able to handle it with the maturity and with the care that you've handled it. From what you've written here, it seems like you guys are on the right track. And buddy, trust me, there are biological fathers out there who are not as good to their own children as you are to your brother. This is an uplifting story, man. You know, I'm feeling giddy. I'm feeling happy. I'm glad there was a happy ending to this story. But let's take a look at the comments. Lamont Just says, "Therapy so he can deal with the future is a great idea. And keep being the best dad possible. Love him. Never let him be in doubt of that. Ever. Your wife is going to have to negotiate this on her end too, since he now knows she isn't his biological mother anymore. Lucky kid is your first son. Someday that will all be very clear to him." I'm curious how your wife is going to to handle this in the long run. I'm just going to assume that you guys are already having discussions about this as to what precautions the two of you can take to ensure that down the line he doesn't get in his mind that he can rebel or misbehave because you aren't his real father and she isn't his real mother. But that's interesting. I'm just really curious as to how your wife is handling it, what her perspective is in all this. Rocky Geographer says, "You are a shining example of how a dad is not necessarily a biological father, but a man who loves his kids with every fiber of his being. Kudos to you for taking that hard step and always being there for your son. I believe he'll learn even more about what it means to be a truly loving parent than he would have had you never told him. Wishing you and your family all the best." Yeah, I can't really see this going any other way. You telling him, his reaction, him walking out of the room, him distancing himself from you, taking time for himself to process it, then coming back to you and apologizing for it, telling you you're a good dad, you guys hugging and embracing and crying and doing all of that stuff. I mean, that sounds like the best ending. I can't think of any other better ending to that. Just like Rocky Geographer said, kudos to you. You definitely deserve it. Turquoise Blue 621 says, "Your children, all of them, are so lucky to have you as their dad. Thank you for sharing this touching update." Yes, man, this story just reinvigorates my belief in humanity. You know, it's refreshing to hear something positive every now and then. But that's all I got for you today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and until next time.